Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to your first session of your YouScience Results walkthrough. So over the next couple of weeks, you've put a lot of time and effort into the assessment portion of YouScience, and now we're going to look over your results and what that really means for you now in school and also in your future. So I want to make sure that everybody has a copy of the YouScience Profile Workbook. This is what we're going to work through over the next couple of weeks. Today we're focusing on the aptitude portion, so you'll just be filling out the first 2 pages today, and then we'll save anything that has to do with careers for the next session. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what you're going to be doing today and what the aptitudes mean, and then you're going to go ahead and work on your own, and you can ask your teacher for help if you have any questions, and you can always send me an email, ashley.timmack@merps.org, if you have questions about your results. So the first thing we're focusing on today are your aptitudes, and then we'll focus on your interests, and we'll talk a little bit about bookmarking. So the first thing is this piece of the pie. Now these are your aptitudes, and the largest portions of your pie are the parts that you have the greatest strengths in. So that doesn't mean that I'm not strong in numerical reasoning. I have always done well in math, but compared to these other areas, these are my strongest parts and not so much the math in terms of the YouScience assessments. So you're going to be exploring your top 2 or 3 today. If you have time, you can go through all of them and see what it has to say, but again, we're going to focus on the biggest ones. So we're going to look at this idea generation one here for me, because that's one of my biggest pieces, and it says that I'm a brainstormer. That's all that it's going to say on this page, but when I go to explore, there's a much larger page, and I can go to other assessment areas and aptitudes as well. So for idea generation, I got the brainstormer section. And there are other options in this area, and it'll talk about that at the bottom of the page, so you can kind of compare where you are with where some other people might be and what they're experiencing in this aptitude. So one really nice component of YouScience is the bookmarking tool. So as you're reading through, you might say, no, this doesn't really apply to me. But if you do get to a topic and you're like, oh yes, this is definitely how I think or how I act or how I feel, you can go ahead and heart it and it will bookmark up here. So that means all your saved aptitudes, all your saved traits, anything that you think describes you, you'll be able to get to up here in this bookmark section. In addition, it will show how this aptitude affects your daily life in work, school, and in social settings. So this can be really helpful in kind of evaluating yourself and say, oh yeah, I do this when I'm with my friends, or oh, I do tend to, at my part-time job, I might do this, or in school, this makes sense why I can't do something or I find something more challenging. And then in addition to that, it's going to talk about things that you might find easy for you and difficult for you. And you might not like this so much, this setup. You're like, I don't like to be told what might be difficult for you, but you can, again, highlight those things. And they can be really helpful if you're placed in a group project with some other students to say, oh, okay, I have trouble concentrating on one task. So then I know I can go to easy for me. Oh, I like to come up with new ideas and directions. So maybe I'm like a brainstormer for the project instead of like maybe being the one writing a paragraph. So those are nice to consider in each of your aptitudes going through. And again, bookmarking those up top. And that also gives you some tips for success, ways to improve, ways to stay engaged, ways to just make sure that you're being the best that you can be in your job, in your schooling, etc. And then this is what I was talking about at the bottom, where you can see this aptitude, idea generation, and others. So you can see I'm a brainstormer. That's where I was at the beginning. And it's a little snippet about brainstormers. And you can also see that in this aptitude, you could be a concentrated focuser or an idea contributor. So you can click on these and see what those individuals, might be dealing with, or they might think a certain way. And so this can be helpful because maybe the person sitting next to you is an idea contributor, and you can kind of talk with them and compare the differences between the two of you in those areas. So don't be afraid to start conversations with people next to you about your different aptitudes. For example, In time frame orientation, you can be a future focuser or a present focuser. So future focusers probably have their life planned out, what they want to do already, whereas a present focuser is kind of focused on high school right now. They're focused in this hour, in this time frame. So you can kind of talk about how your daily life looks a little bit different. As people who both have aptitudes in the same area, you can still be very, very different. So we're going to go back to this main screen. So we've talked about the aptitudes and what you need to do there. Now we're going to look at your personal approach. Mostly we're going to talk about how you contribute to a team. But it talks about your vocabulary levels. So the options are solid, accomplished, and masterful. And so again, this is an aptitude and you can build on it over time. So obviously, like I graduated college already, I wrote lots of papers and lab reports. So my vocabulary is probably going to be more advanced than someone who's in junior high. So just keep in mind that your vocabulary level can evolve over time. The second thing is a work approach. So you can be a specialist, a liaison, or a generalist. So this is going to talk about whether you prefer focusing on one passion and digging deep to master one thing, like a specialist, or do you prefer to be involved in multiple areas? So think about your work approach examples in school, in a team setting, and kind of figure out if this really matches with who you are. The next thing is your interpersonal style. You can be introverted, extroverted, a blended energizer. So it's like the two ends of the spectrum and the in-between. So this trait isn't really included in your career matches because every personality type can be successful in any career. So don't think that having a certain interpersonal style is going to limit you from succeeding in a career path that you're interested in. For me, I don't personally think I'm an extrovert. I think I'm more of a blended energizer. But usually in my work setting, I'm forced to be a little bit more extroverted. So I think that's why I got this answer on the personal approach setting. And finally, we talked about time frame orientation a little bit already. There's future focuser, balanced focuser, and the present focuser. So it's talking about how you describe and set your goals, whether you're setting short-term goals, long-term goals for the future, and what kind of works best for you. The next thing talks about how you contribute to a team. So your darkest square with a check mark in it is the work approach and interpersonal style that best describe you. So I'm described as an extroverted liaison. I enjoy representing a cause that I care about, but still hearing others' opinions and perspectives. So they're trying to show here that every single box is needed to have an effective team. So it'd be really cool if you could compare to the person next to you and see what box they might be in and see how many different boxes are in your class. And hopefully you have one of every single box in your class. And feel free, again, to start a conversation about this at the time, or like go up to the board and mark which square you are in at the end of class, just again to see how many different types of personalities are within a work team. The last thing are types of work that interest you. This is based on the interest profiler that you took towards the end of your assessments, and you can always go back and retake the interest profiler at a different time if you feel that these really aren't representing what you're interested in. These will show up in your career matches. You can see them here, but again, we're not evaluating those until another day. So you can look a little bit in the descriptions of the types that interest you. And again, these are your top 3. So how are you showing those interests today? What ideas do these give you for your future? Again, your interests will change as you're exposed to new things. So that might be a good thing to retake next fall when you're thinking about, am I doing the 5th year? Am I going on and graduating early? What is my next step? Am I going to trade school? Am I going to Delta? Am I going to a 4-year? Am I entering the workforce with credentials? A lot of these are good questions to ask and how they kind of fit into these interests. Another thing that I want to show you is you can download a PDF report of all of your aptitudes. And this is kind of fun to save on your phone, to take home, show your parents, kind of say like, wow, look at all this stuff that I learned about myself. And again, you can always go up to this bookmarks tab and see all of the different things that you think best describe you. So now I just have one last thing to mention before I let you go to work on your own aptitudes. At the bottom, there's some more brain games like the other assessments that we took that you can take. I don't recommend doing these right away. I think it's beneficial to kind of wait a little while, maybe closer to your senior year or at the end of this year, to see if these have changed at all and change where your aptitudes are, because they will affect your career matches. Not a ton usually, but it can have some impact on what you see as your career matches. So again, go back to this document, look through your aptitudes, your core drivers, personal approach, and answer the questions. And again, we're stopping at career exploration. And feel free, once you're done with this, to have conversations about how your interests and aptitudes are different. We'll see you guys in the next YouScience review session. Have a great day.